And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winick. I'm the founder and CEO at Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Katie Anderson. She's an internationally recognized leadership coach, consultant, author, and speaker. In 2013, she founded Katie Anderson Consulting. She is a California native. She's got a BA with honors from Stanford and was a Fulbright scholar in Australia. And she just recently published her latest book. So welcome aboard, Katie, which is Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn. So Here we go. Cool. So why don't we start with, let's start with how the hell did you get here? This doesn't seem like a linear path, and then we'll get to the book.
Well, it's rare it's a linear path. And actually, even though it sometimes feels like my book was just published last week, at the time of this recording was the book's 3-year anniversary. So it's incredible. But no, looking backwards, I see the common threads, but it wasn't linear. I came out of university at Stanford thinking I wanted to be a PhD professor doing research and spent.
Isn't that what everybody comes out of Stanford?
Yeah, I was thinking they'd be an academic, but I was a real nerd, a real learner at heart. And that's where I started my career. I was doing research at UCSF, the University of California, San Francisco. Sure. Got my Fulbright, did all of that research, very qualitative, health policy based, which came to really help me in writing a book later. Moved to Australia, stayed for 4 years because Australia was amazing in my late 20s, a place to be. And then came back to California, which is where I grew up, and took a role at Stanford Children's Hospital in their performance improvement department. And that was where things really pivoted for me. I got very passionate about how do we create tangible change in organizations to make things better. And at that point for our patients who are small children and their families. Sure. And then on that journey got really focused on the leadership behaviors around how do we lead change. And 10 years ago, started my own consulting practice, Katie Anderson Consulting. And I work with change leaders in all different industries to really create cultures of learning and continuous improvement around the world. And then serendipitously, which has led to my book, for my husband's job, in 2015, we moved to Tokyo, Japan. And I couldn't have been more thrilled to go to the birthplace of the Toyota production system and Japan, which is the foundation of so much continuous improvement in Kaizen. And through that is where I met the subject of my book, Isao Yoshino, who's a 40-year leader. So that was sort of the long journey. And now I'm back working with organizations around the world to create transformative cultures of learning. So there you go. But the path between learning, international lives, and connecting with people is the thread that unites it all.
Right. And it's always interesting to see where that thread comes, because it in your case, took literally a trip around the world and back and then some, right? So speaking of journeys, writing a book is a journey. And even though yours is celebrating, I love the idea of book anniversaries, right? Like people celebrating the birthday of a book or something. But tell me a little bit about, go back to maybe 6 months, a year before the book was released, when you were making decisions about the how, not necessarily the content per se, but lots of decisions to make self-publish, hybrid publish, go for the big house, whatever. What path did you go and why?
Yeah. So to even go back 2 years before, that's where got the idea of the book. And I just knew it was sort of I wanted to create a book with Mr. Yoshino and share leadership lessons. And we can talk separately about the whole process of writing a book, because that's a whole nother thing. But it was years of purposeful interviews, leveraging my experience in qualitative research, and then starting to write the book. Concurrently, I was also thinking about how do I bring the book to market and to publish it and all of that. So was working on the book, doing my consulting, and also thinking about how do I, what's the right process. So where I started, it was probably a year before the book came out, actually, because it's a long process to do the editing and getting the book to market. I talked to a lot of different authors in my space of business transformation, cultural improvement, continuous improvement, and talk to them about their experience, from folks who were, had traditional publishers and had successfully done books that way, to others who had done a combination, to others who had only self-published. And
so let me pause you there for a minute, because I love that. And what I find is maybe 5% of people actually do that, because being an author is typically lonely. It's a little bit introverted. But I think sometimes people don't realize, geez, I'm not the first one to do this, to make these decisions, to go forward, to be overwhelmed. Why would I not talk to people that have done it before, just to get that insight, good, bad, or ugly, right? And so many people don't. And it's shocking to me, because I think, and you'd probably agree, that when you reach out to folks and say, hey, I'm where you were 5 years ago, whatever, would love to hear about your experience. People are so open and welcoming and willing to share.
Absolutely. And, so yes, you leverage your network to get information. We don't want to create mistakes, and we learn from different experiences. So I'm always happy to talk to aspiring authors about my experience. I was really interested in coming here today to also share some of, my experience and lessons learned. And everyone's situation is different. And I always goes back to what's your purpose and what's your goal in writing the book, because that will help you. It helps influence the decisions that you make about the process to get there. And, I might make different choices now as a more established author versus 3-4 years ago when I had never published a book. I, published my master's thesis and papers, which is a totally different world. So where I came to is that what was driving me as my purpose as an author was I wanted, of course, to create impact and wanted people to read the book and get value from it. But I also wanted to retain some control on what the process looked like. I had some vision for, some of the formatting of the book, and I didn't want it to be, so I had some vision on that. Where it came down to also was what the process of getting a traditional publisher. Once I got introduced to a few of them, it seemed like it was going to be still a multi-year process for I had to write a whole pitch to them and a whole marketing proposal. And I was just ready at that point. This was probably at the 9-month mark to really get going to start.
So stay there a minute. I want to unpack two things you said. Yeah. So one is the goals, right? Yeah. So if the goals are to get the book out, to show the world that you have a perspective, to codify your ideas, et cetera, great, right? Or whatever your goals are, to elevate the brand, to drive net new business. There's lots of different goals. Then you have to have a timeline against those goals, right? Yeah. And then you have to have alignment. And then that timeline, I think people don't realize that if you're going to go traditional publisher, first of all, I think you have to put it the other way. Why would they possibly choose you, right? And I don't mean that facetiously, but what is it that they're looking for? Because if you put your goals on a piece of paper and their goals are really easy. So, make more money selling the books than it costs them to produce the books. That's their goal. Your goals are, the amount of money that you make directly from a book is almost a rounding error. Even from all the books that you've sold relative to your business, I doubt it's 10% of your revenue. So there's a lack of alignment with the publisher.
Absolutely. And so I think at this point I would have different opportunities because I've established myself as a best-selling author. My books won multiple awards, including a very prestigious award in my space called the Shingo Publication Award.
Right.
And so it's been translated into 6 languages and more coming. So I've really established myself as a sellable author.
If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/LTL and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcasts and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So when you think about the disconnect from an alignment standpoint between your goals and the traditional publisher's goals, and what they're looking for and what you're looking for, it was probably out of sequence at the time for you as a first-time author to go traditional, right?
Absolutely. And it's, they want to have a lot of information from you and your marketing plan. And, at this point, being a well-established author, I've demonstrated I can sell books. I've received some really special awards, including the Shingo Publication Award, and my book's been translated into multiple languages. It would be a different case of me going to a traditional publisher now. But as a first-time author, I also was like, this is going to be a really laborious process to even get in the door. Now, I did have some introductions to some smaller, more niche publishers in the space, and I ultimately decided, and I had some offers from them, and I ultimately decided not to go that route. Not that that was a bad route, but for me, as we say, aligned with my goals, I really wanted to retain more control over the book and go down that journey.
Sure.
So, I just decided that what they were offering me, I would be able to create by establishing my own publishing company, hiring the people to do the books. I think self-publishing often gets people think you're just slapping up a Word document onto.
Yeah, right.
People don't realize.
Yeah, no. I think the old school self-publishing looked like, the 4th grade class project or something. And today there's no excuse for anything less than, perfection and professionalism in terms of the look and the feel and all that. And I think the other advantage that you sort of alluded to is time. It takes time to write a book, takes time to edit a book. Those things take time, but the time to market can be accelerated when you're self-publishing and you have more control. If you have a vision for layout, look, feel, cover, all these other things, you don't answer anybody.
Absolutely. And I like to say, instead of saying I self-published, like I established a publishing company in the same way that I have other businesses, and I hired people to do the professional jobs to publish professional level books. And so I just happen to be the person, it's interesting. People say, oh, can we work? What do you think your publisher is going to say about that? And I'm like, well, I can introduce you to the publisher. I'm like,
hello. Right.
It actually has made things a lot easier. I'm the one who decides what to say yes to the international contracts. I was just talking to a large corporation who wanted, some customized books to give out as gifts at a upcoming event. And they're like, what do you think your publisher would say about that? I'm like, well, it's an easy process. Let's get this going. So there's a lot of benefits to that, going that route, but I also highly recommend to authors that you hire people who have skills in this, because learning the process you need professional editors, you need someone who can help navigate all of these publication platforms. Because it's just like, you don't want to keep making the same mistakes. There's no reason for you to make those mistakes or to stumble through it when you can hire people to help you through that process.
Exactly. So now talk about, it's been 3 years, what the book has done. And I don't necessarily care about it in terms of number of units sold, that sort of thing, but what's the before and after and the impact that it's had on the business? Because that's really the point.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So there were, I think there were a few fold goals. Like I genuinely felt this was a passion project of amplifying Mr. Yoshino's lessons and wisdom into the world in the same way that I had the value of being able to sit by his side for years. But also there was, of course it does amplify your thought leadership. And so as it relates to the business and in continuing the impact though that you want for your business also requires, it's not just publishing the book, but it's continuously and relentlessly marketing and publicizing the book and getting it in the hands of people, because otherwise you're not having that impact.
So stay there for a second, because I think that's a critical piece. So when you go a traditional publisher or a hybrid publisher, publishers think in terms of publishing cycles. That's a fall release or a spring release, whatever the case may be. As a business owner, you don't care when the book was published. Like you're spending time every day thinking about, how do I get this book in front of these people that line up to the types of clients that I'd like to serve, and get it in front of them, because that's a great conversation starter, a great way for them to get exposed to our way of thinking and what we do, right? And that clock doesn't run out at day 90, right?
No, it's a lot of work and effort. In some even traditional published authors said, like, honestly, your book publisher isn't doing a lot of the marketing for you. It's really it's on the author to really take the leadership on that. And so I saw that first year, and I published in July of 2020, so height of the lockdown. So I just went on so many podcasts and webinars and just putting things out there. It was just important. And I really believed in the message in my book. So it was like that talking from the heart, not just trying to sell books, but really amplify the stories that I felt just so grateful to be able to put out there, and continuing to build on that, and then building things in my business that supported, because the stories in the book are not my stories, but I'm the one who shaped them, and I can help people take those stories and apply them through the consulting and coaching that I do. So I created, and this is again during the pandemic, online coaching programs for individuals. And that then morphed into doing more corporate work. And now that I'm that person, my corporate work has expanded dramatically. And also all of my speaking engagements, which were, remote for the first 18 months. And now I've been traveling around the globe. I've been to 10 countries in the last year, speaking on global stages, both about the book and then the messages and the ways that I help people take those messages and embody them. And so it's been both a combination of building my brand and visibility, and work comes to me because people read the book, right?
And so, and I think you moved from the author role to the evangelist role, which is pretty interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. So any final words you'd have for someone in a situation that you were in 4 years ago, or words to your younger self, if this was like a bad Hallmark movie?
Totally. So first, go back to purpose. What is your goal and your purpose of writing this book? the reason why. In many cases, the book really becomes your calling card. And it's like said, then how does it fit with your business? And then aligning your publication process with those goals.
Right.
And get the people to help you learn the things that you need to learn and help you with the things that you don't necessarily have the expertise in, so that you can have the impact that you want. Some people just want to write a book, but if you really want impact with your book, it's a much longer journey. And just be relentless and also be passionate about your topic, because you're going to be talking about it for a long time.
Yeah, and don't get tired of it, because the passion, could wear out after you've been on the 70th podcast telling a similar story to a new population and audience, because every time you're doing that, it's somebody's first, right? So you have to be mindful of that. Well, this has been great. I appreciate your time, Katie. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter. And people can reach out to me, Katie Anderson at kbjanderson.com, and on LinkedIn as well. So reach out, and good luck, everyone, on your thought leadership and publication journey.
Thank you. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.